Hey guys, it's Jack, and a little over a month ago, I did a video on what challenges should be cut from Drag Race, if any. I concluded that every single challenge has merit, but it's a lot nicer when the queens actually have choice, but there was a challenge that I accidentally left out, or maybe just kind of left out because I don't know if it counted. The Lipsync Smackdown, or Lipsync LalapaRuza, is an interesting case because now at this point, I guess it does count as a challenge. There was one in All-Stars 4, and then more recently, there's been one basically every season. I guess I didn't really count it as its own challenge because every time it's presented to us, it's presented in like a twist sort of way. There hasn't really been a time where Ruse walked in the workroom and been like, oh, this week we're doing the Lipsync Smackdown. It's always like a punishment or just like the twist of the season. So I wanted to make this video today because I feel like it's one of the last areas I haven't really hit as challenges on the show. In one of my other recent videos, I said that Lipsync Smackdowns could kind of take away from the novelty of the season. After going back and really watching these and thinking about it, I don't know if that's exactly true. I think I just have a distaste for these types of episodes. I'll go more into this at the end, but for right now, I want to go through each season that's had a Smackdown or a LalapaRuza and talk about the quality of these specific episodes. A couple of these I have already covered, so I may skim over them a little more, or if I have more thoughts to add, I'll add them there. So let's go over the one that started it all. The Lipsync LalapaRuza was such an interesting twist for the time, and I think it really went over well. What I think makes a good Smackdown is if there's drama or a good storyline to follow over the course of the episode. And we definitely got it here. I think this is one of the better Smackdowns because they held that drama up until the end. There were bits of unresolved things like with Farrah and Valentina, but of course the main event was Latrice versus Mo. To be completely honest, I'm not even that invested in this conflict. I think it was an interesting argument from the start that I didn't fully agree with on both sides. But just following the plot of the episode and Latrice knowing that this is going to make really good TV, I was invested. One of my favorite parts that was really only recreated in season 14 was the fact that the eliminated girls got to pick the person they wanted to lip sync who was still in the competition. Aside from Jasmine, of course, all of the reveals were really interesting because you had a good idea of who they were gonna pick, but you never really knew. I think this episode did a really good job of juggling like the power and the lack of safety that the people in the competition had. Each of them had to lip sync, and if they lost to the person who picked them, that person replaced them in the competition. Did it really amount to anything? No, not really, because I feel like people would be really upset if it did, but I think that just the idea of it being there was enough to keep me entertained. I do definitely think this was all just a way to get Latrice back in the competition, which I'm not complaining about at all because I love Latrice, and the fact that no one was eliminated takes away from rewatchability of the episode when it comes to that whole threat and entertainment that comes from that. But for a first time watch and just seeing Latrice come back, I do think it was worth it. What also won me over about this episode was the fact that all of the lip syncs were really high quality. Out of every single Smackdown, it felt like these girls had the most time to prepare. In season 14, they also knew about it before, but there was the chance they had to do it multiple times, while in All-Stars 4, they could really go all out because it was only one lip sync. They didn't need to conserve their energy or save a reveal, they could just do everything in that singular lip sync. So we got stuff flying all over the place, a lot of really fun reveals, a lot of amazing tricks. I mean, come on, adrenaline with Naomi. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the buildup really paid off for this specific episode, and I can't really say that about some of the others. Some of the others just kind of stink a little bit, but you know what doesn't stink? This video is sponsored by Native. Native is a company that specializes in deodorant that checks off 3 amazing boxes. These deodorants are aluminum-free, cruelty-free, and vegan. I've wanted to switch to aluminum-free deodorant as of recent because I've heard about a lot of the benefits that it has. And with Native, I put on the deodorant and I feel light, fresh, and protected from odor. They were kind enough to send me 3 scents: lilac and white tea, coconut and vanilla, and citrus and herbal musk. The coconut and vanilla is very, very light on the nose. Citrus and herbal musk is the perfect combination of that orangey scent that everyone knows and loves and the musk of regular deodorants. But out of the 3, the lilac and white tea is my personal favorite because it's just a scent I've never smelled before. It just smells so fresh with like a floral scent, but not too floral to the point where I feel like a walking candle. All 3 have the perfect balance that just hits the nose and gets people talking about how good you smell. And Native even offers plastic-free versions of their deodorant with the same formula but different packaging that's more sustainable. They have so many amazing products. They also sent me a body wash and toothpaste, and I have used those so much. It's just a company that thinks ahead, and I'm really happy that they're sponsoring today's video. And of course, I gotta hook you up. Save 33% 20% on your first deodorant pack by clicking the link in my description and using code JackFed. They're normally $39, but you'll get the 3-pack for $26, and you can also use my code for 20% off any body wash or toothpaste. They're also running a sale that has naughty or nice collections of deodorant, just so much good to talk about with this company. So check out the link in the description, start smelling and feeling fresh, and now let's get back to the video.
Yeah, it really does, right?
Up next, unfortunately, I have to talk about Season 13's again. Oh my god, I do not like this one. I did a full video on Season 13 Smackdown and how much I just didn't like this episode, how mean-spirited it is, how it's one of the worst of the entire franchise. I'll briefly go over the same points here because I still agree with a lot of what I said in that video. The whole episode felt so extremely mean-spirited because these queens just got there, walked in the room, and then half of them were eliminated. That's their dream gone. They don't really know what's going on. They didn't really have time to prepare anything, and it's embarrassing because they literally just got there. The pacing of this episode is horrendous. The fact that each of them walked in there, introduced themselves, and then had one other person walk in, and then every single time they did the exact same thing. Rue would come on the screen and say, "Meet me on the main stage." They would be like, what's going on? They would do that, have a little talk, lip sync, wash, rinse, repeat. Only by like the 6th one did they speed up the process and have like one quick confessional before they went out there, but just the pacing, it slows down the episode so much. I didn't really like any of the lip syncs either because again, they didn't have time to prepare. Someone like Denali had to lip sync in skates because they wouldn't let her take them off. It's just the weirdest episode they've ever had to do. I understand why they did it and they were trying to experiment, but I just don't think it went over the best. Not to mention, after losing a singular lip sync, half of them are called the loser circle, and that's kind of a storyline for most of the season, but then it's not. Okay, I'll get back into that in a video coming very soon. Unfortunately, again, Canada's Drag Race Season 2 got lost in the mix. Even though there was a Smackdown this season, it just came towards the end. It's not the most memorable one to me, but I do think it has a lot of positives that I do want to go over. There were only 3 lip syncs, and they lip synced to get into the top 3, which I think is a really interesting concept that I did enjoy. This came after their reunion too, so it felt slightly tacked on, but at the same time, because it was only 3 lip syncs, it kind of helped the pacing a lot. Every queen from the season came back to react to the lip syncs, so it really felt like a full circle moment, and these lip syncs felt like the final step to get into the finale, so they executed it really well, honestly. My only issue is that I wasn't a really big fan of any of the lip syncs. Like, none of them stuck out, but none of them were bad. They lip synced to more RuPaul songs, but they were thankfully different from All Stars 4, just not my favorite RuPaul songs, I guess. I also just really feel for both Gia and Pythia because they literally just did a lip sync going all out, and then they had to do another one. Season 14, they got a little time to relax in between rounds, but here it was just go, go, go. So I could not imagine the stress and the exhaustion they had to go through, and even then they gave a pretty good performance. The lip syncs were the best, but the placement of the episode, how they paced it, I think was all really good, and I think they could do this in the future on a main season or just another Canada season. It would be great. Up next, we have Season 14, which I talked about in the Season 13 video a while back, but that was like right after the episode aired, so my thoughts have kind of grown since then. Season 14 is what Season 13 should have been for the Lipsync Smackdown. I think they really learned from the previous season, and it was just a lot better all around. What I didn't mention about Season 13 is that the queens just walked in the door and there was no previous storylines and there was no real reason to form a connection with them yet, so when they got fake eliminated or fake stayed in the competition, it was just hard to really care. But when you instead do it halfway through the season, there's a lot more storyline going on, there's a lot more reason to care about the queens because we formed a connection. It was just overall a much better decision, and I'm glad they placed the episode where they did. With more time passing, I've grown to really like the lip syncs in this episode. Swept Away and Never Too Much in particular have become some of my favorites from the season. There weren't as many reveals, and I feel like the performances weren't as planned out, but that's not any fault to them because they had to memorize so many songs. The lip syncs were just a lot more practical, if that makes sense, and sometimes I enjoy that even more. What I did love about this episode, like I kind of brought up with All Stars 4, is that there was a good amount of choice in it. Was the whole bingo ball thing completely rigged? Yes, 1000%. But the fact that the queens can either pick the person they're lip syncing against or pick the song, that's a good amount of choice that I'm really happy they went with. Naomi spilled a little while back that regardless of what box she picked, it was always going to be Adrenaline.
All those suitcases are filled with the exact same thing. Like, oh God, I don't know who watches this.
Yes,
everyone watches this. Sorry.
This is what you're here for, to tell us the tea.
I looked down and I saw them putting Adrenaline in each suitcase, and I was like, oh, here we go. Here we go. But I got gooped. I got fucking gooped. Fuck, they got me. They made me stress and listen to Kitty Girl for 3 fucking hours.
I feel like production rigged it in All Stars 4 to make sure that each of the performances was really entertaining because each of the queens got a song that was suited for them. But I definitely do like the idea of choice here better because the queens can strategize a lot more, and we saw that with Willow, and I love this clip of Willow.
I didn't want this. I wanted someone to choose me because I want to know what song I'm doing. I'm picking the girl that I think is going to pick the song that I want. I choose Bosco.
Yes!
Oh, this is gonna be good.
Let's do Never Too Much by Luther Vandross.
Hey! I am so happy. That is the only song that I wanted.
This episode overall just feels like one of the most natural Smackdowns there are. Aside from the little meddling with the bingo balls, everything else about the episode is so candid. The queens coming back into the workroom after surviving, the reactions to getting picked, the reactions to the lip syncs, it feels so fluid, and that ends up keeping me entertained even if I do think the episode drags a little bit. I do want to bring something up to you guys because I found it really interesting and it kind of kept me up at night. Okay, so the Lipsync Smackdown happened because everyone except Deja bombed Snatch Game. They framed it as like a punishment because all of them failed in Snatch Game. They all deserved a bottom placement, but this would be more entertaining, so let's do it next week. But in preseason, they couldn't really predict that they were gonna bomb Snatch Game, and yet they still knew the number of episodes that they ordered. So my question is, did they cut a challenge, or was the Smackdown already pre-planned because they had a lot of extra songs licensed? They could have already been planning to do the Smackdown and they just used Snatch Game as an excuse, or they had no idea that this was gonna happen and they took it as an opportunity. This is just the stuff that I think about late at night, and it shows that I have a problem. Whatever the actual answer is, it created a very interesting episode and I'm happy that they did it. The holy grail for lip sync Smackdowns though is Silky versus the world. For all the circumstances they had and the story they had to tell, I think this episode is paced pretty well. We had no idea what was going on for the entirety of the season, and we got this, and it was such an amazing payoff. And Silky dominating basically the entire episode gave us a storyline that they didn't even really know was gonna be a storyline going into it. I'm pretty sure production just saw Silky eat over and over again and then get giddy every single time because they're like, oh, this is just gonna be the best storyline. Every single lip sync from this episode has its own charm. Even the one that I didn't like the most with Scarlett and Silky, it's not bad by any means. Just the way that Silky slowly elevated her concepts and kept us invested, like I don't know if she was even doing that on purpose or she just kept having these random ideas, but it just ropes the viewers in so much, and she is just so smart. The other thing that I really loved about this episode is the fact that we're learning alongside the rest of the contestants. We knew that some twist was going on, they knew that there was a game within a game but had no idea what it meant, but having Raja, Kylie, Ginger, and Trinity react alongside us, it just makes everyone on the same page. We feel what they feel and they know what we know, and it just adds an extra layer of entertainment and interest on the episode. The way I reacted to Silky smashing her guitar was completely boosted by the fact that Trinity was smashing a pillow on the ground. Having them react alongside the episodes is just one of the best choices they could have done. I really don't think there's anything negative that I could say about this episode aside from the pacing, but that's just an issue with all of the Smackdowns, and again, I think they did it the best here. There's a reason it's one of the highest rated episodes of all time, and we just gotta thank Silky. Thank you so much. I'm Team Silky on Canada versus the World. I posted on my community tab yesterday asking if people like the Smackdowns or not, and basically everyone had a lot of really good input that I agree with. When they serve a purpose and eliminate someone or bring someone back, it feels like a satisfying enough conclusion. Some people were a little more harsh on All Stars 4 because of the idea of someone getting eliminated and getting replaced, and that didn't really happen, and I do completely understand that, but I am a big fan of Mo, so I'm happy she wasn't eliminated. The one episode that everyone can agree on that no one really liked was season 13's because it really didn't go anywhere for the entire season. It was just super poorly paced and a filler episode, and though it kind of had an effect on the rest of the season, it wasn't in a good way. Again, I'll get back into that in a different video. Another thing that was brought up a lot that I do agree with is the fact that a lot of people think they're predetermined or very rigged. I already talked about Naomi and how they did the whole case thing with her. People thought that only Latrice and Eureka were the viable options to come back, and I do agree with that because they were the ones that were just eliminated. And though Jasmine gave a very good performance every single time, it felt like they were just pushing her out of the competition by the end. These points are extremely valid and they could definitely take away from the episode. I think if you watch them without looking into this, it's a lot more entertaining. But sometimes you just can't avoid them, and I do understand that. So after making this video, do I like lip sync Smackdowns more? I don't know. Like I said, if there's a cool storyline to follow over the course of the episode, I think that keeps me a lot more engaged, but just something about the pacing kills it for me. I just think doing the same song and dance every single time, especially when you kind of know what's going on already, it's just not worth it. If they have to pick people, that's okay, but the fact that RuPaul says every single time 2 queens stand before me, and the whole suspense leading up to the lip sync basically takes a whole minute or two, that's just horrible pacing. I'm sorry. We as an audience know this feel, and even if you don't, you will get it by the second time. We don't need to hear it every single time. I just find myself checking out or going on my phone during these segments where they're trying to be suspenseful because I know what's coming, I know what's already going to be said. There's just not much that they can do, and I don't know why they keep it in. There's also an argument that I brought up before that I don't think I agree with, but I was more just saying because a lot of people think about it online. Is there too much lip syncing on the show? After thinking it over, no, I don't think so. Lip syncing is just too integral to drag in general for it to ever be too much. Most people are complaining about it because of these smackdowns, but when there's a good smackdown or a good lip sync for the crown, people don't really care at all. I think it basically comes down to the quality of these smackdowns. If they're bad, the argument comes up more, but if they're good, basically everyone's silent. At the end of the day, 95% of these queens' primary gigs is to lip sync and to perform, so why not showcase as much of that as possible on TV? Other than a potential top 2 placement or being in the bottom, there's no other chance they really get to lip sync. So by doing these smackdowns, it's a really good way to showcase these queens' lip syncing abilities without having to put a different person in the bottom each week, if that makes sense. So I like what they stand for. I love a lot of the lip syncs that come from this, but just something about the pacing, personally, I can't really get into them. There's some that are more entertaining to me because of the storylines that are set up or the drama in the episode, but once I get to 2 queens stand before me and then have to wait 2 minutes before they actually lip sync, I just check out. That may be a non-issue for some of you, so if you eat all of these episodes up, I completely understand. I think the sweet spot or the maximum should be 4 lip syncs. After that, I think it's pushing it just a little bit. But after doing this video, I did learn to appreciate the challenge more, even if it isn't my favorite. Thank you guys so much for watching. A new Hold the Phone is coming out Friday, a new video is coming out Sunday, and thanks again to Native for sponsoring this video. Spread some love, and I'll see you soon with another video.